Hey everyone, I'm Ross Treelever, and this is another Sprague Spotlight interview. Today I'm here with Shane Hartnett. Shane, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hey, I'm Shane Hartnett, the regional manager of the Cascadia region.
So, which offices is the Cascadia region now?
We have the I-5 corridor, so we're Portland going north, Tacoma, Tukwila, Seattle, and Marysville.
Okay. Now, Eugene, Medford, Bakersfield, well, Bakersfield's on 99, and Los Angeles probably think they're on the I-5 corridor too, but you mean the northern I-5 corridor.
Yes, yep, Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, so Canada to Salem, basically.
There you go.
All right, excellent. Now, how did you come to join Sprague?
Well, gosh, I've been here for a little over 13 years, and at the time, I was living in Philadelphia with my now wife, and we knew we wanted to move back to the West Coast. We weren't really sure where, and but I'm from Washington, so we started just looking up. Looked on Craigslist and found a job. I had zero idea that I would ever get into pest control, but I looked up Sprague, read about it. Sounded like a really cool place to work. So I just made a phone call. That was back, I think I called and Carrie Thibodeau answered the phone. And I talked to Jeff for a quick moment and got an interview set up with you, Ross. And so I moved back about a month later, I think, and from drove over from Spokane and met with you. And that was in August, early August of 2007. And
Wow.
then you hired me and I started a couple weeks later.
So a lot's changed that since then. Obviously, you're now regional manager. Walk me through your career projection or progression.
Oh yeah, so I started as a route manager. I had the east side of, this is back when it was just Seattle and Tacoma and the Puget Sound. And so I had kind of the Bellevue out I-90 route as a route manager. That was, well, today I think that whole area is covered by, roughly 4 technicians. So it's grown quite a bit. And so I did that. I was a route manager for about 3 years. And then it just kind of timing worked out. And the operations manager at the time left the company. And so I interviewed and got the job as the ops manager for South Seattle. So it was me and Mark Mead, as you know, obviously. He was the North operations manager. I was South. So I had kind of everywhere from, I think it was probably about Ballard down to and including the airport. We kind of were geographically divided by the water and I-90. So so I was an operations manager for, let's see, that was about 2010 till 2014 or 15.
14.
And then became a branch manager. That was when the districts all kind of were formed, if I remember correctly. So the new district managers were, you know, were set in place, I guess. And Mark, who was the branch manager in Seattle, became a district manager. And then I became the branch manager of Seattle. And I was there until 2016. And in 2016, we split. That's when we moved up north and kind of started our mini journey to where we are now in Marysville. We went from Everett, and we're in Everett at one building for 3 years, and a couple buildings later, Alfie and you guys, bought a new building, and we have a nice new building there in Marysville.
The Taj Mahal of the greater Puget Sound area, at least for offices.
Yep. And so we were there for the last year, and now as of January 1st, I'm in my new role as regional manager.
Awesome. Very cool. One of the things that we're so proud of too is that how many of us have started as technicians and have worked our way into other parts of the organization. Our development internally, what development courses have you had the ability to take advantage of?
Well, the biggest one that I think that probably by far the most impactful was leadership development. And I don't know if you remember, but it was when I was a route manager and you called me one day and you said, "Hey, I'm going to meet you for lunch." And so I was over in Bellevue and you said, "Hey, let's meet at Goldberg's." And I was like, "Goldberg's? Wow." Normally I'm like, I was thinking maybe it would be Subway or something like that. And we went and we sat down and you said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." And we sat there and we talked for about an hour about leadership development. And um, from there, I applied and then was in that the next class that had started the following year. And let's see, there was about back then there was, I think, 6 of us, I want to say, in the whole thing. And by far probably the most impactful year professionally, um, for me, ever. It was the first time I'd really kind of looked at the world and looked at my job that way, through that lens. And so soon after that, that was when just timed out that the operations manager role came up. And but I look back, I still have all my stuff from the leadership class, all my books. I still reference them all the time. So
That's so awesome. I first of all, I remember meeting you for that. I remember going to Goldberg's. I remember liking to go meet you because at least we could park. Like a lot of parts of Seattle, you might be walking for blocks on blocks on blocks, but at least in Factoria, you can at least park. The spots might be small, but I remember our conversation. I remember that part, and I was looking to recruit leaders, and you obviously had it in you, and I just wasn't sure that you knew it at the time. But what an
I don't
amazing
know if I did.
what an amazing journey from there to here too, by the way. It's so cool. Who along the way then had a big impact? Because I mean, Jeff created that class, I think in about '05 or so, or that curriculum.
Oh, well, certainly Jeff, and throughout ever since that leadership class, and I mean even up through today, he's had a huge impact on me. Early on, one of my earlier mentors here at Sprague, that started with that class, was Kathy King.
Oh yeah.
And her and I started at Sprague. I think I remember filling out our onboarding paperwork at corporate with Sally, like in the same conference room, like across from each other. And she was obviously going to become the HR director. But I remember that specifically. But then after leadership, her and I mean, God, we talked once a week, I think, um, for most of the time until she moved on. So she was a really big impact early on in my career. Specifically as an operations manager, I was pretty new to management. So I had, as you can imagine, 10,000 questions just about people and how to do things. And so she was a really good outlet for me that was not operationally focused, because I had a million different people I could go talk to about, how do I fix this? How do I do this? I'm, we're down a person or whatever the case, but her, I could actually talk to about things that kind of balanced that side of being a manager out and helped me out with that side of stuff.
Well, I think she taught you and many others, including myself, that there's some questions you just don't want to ask your boss about. You want to talk to somebody else. It just, for whatever reason, you just want sometimes another opinion on the matter. And I think she gave that outlet not just to you, but I think to me and many others. And I think it also helped me and many other people start reaching out to a greater network at Sprague rather than just looking up the chain. Sorry, I really liked. That had a big impact on me as well.
Yeah. Um, I, again, I, there's so many people and I, you know, no matter what, I would miss somebody when talking about who had great impact on me. Certainly AJ has over the last few years, working under him, since he had, moved back from Salt Lake City. He has, always has that kind of that always has the constant kind of push for improvement. I think that no matter what, it just kind of makes you want to be better all the time. And I think that that's one of the big things that I get from him since I've worked for him over the last, gosh, what, 4 years or so. So,
Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I think Ricky Gervais says it best. Come up, thank your agent, thank your guy out of here is what he says during the award shows, So don't worry about it. You're always going to forget someone. Uh, well, have you had an unusual job other than pest control? I mean, have you ever had an unusual job in your career?
um, gosh, I mean, if I went back to when I was young, I certainly did lots of odds and ends, when I was in high school and stuff. But so I guess going back to what I was doing right before I came here, I worked in hospitality. I worked in restaurants. I started doing that when I was in college just to kind of make some extra money. And and I actually really, really enjoyed it. I had never worked in a restaurant or anything like that. And then my very first job at a restaurant, it was at a really high volume, really, really busy, also very, kind of fairly upscale place. And it was extremely demanding. Still to this day, I think it's kind of the hardest like most stressed I've been in a given, hour or two period of any job I've ever had. So I still think a lot about that. Working in that industry, it's very unique. And it's not for everybody, but I learned a lot about it. I learned a lot about working with people, as a team in that respect, and also opening up a little bit and just kind of the customer service side of things. I really liked a lot. Looking back at, one of the other unique jobs I had, I was a caddy at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. And so I started out, I still am, but I was very, very shy, very, very introverted my whole life. And all of a sudden doing that, and you get on your first day of the job, and you got to stand up there in front of four people that are, usually the resort gets pretty, a lot of the golfers there are pretty serious. They know their stuff. A lot of people that are, a lot of business meetings, a lot of business golf trips. And so being this shy kid standing up and having to lead four people through 4 hours of golf, that was probably it was put me out of my comfort zone immediately, which was, I think ultimately was really good for me.
Well, I also know that you know your way around a golf course. I mean, you don't probably get to play as much as you'd like, but you almost beat me in your only round of the year a couple of years ago. And so, I mean, you're no slouch on the golf course. But how would you describe yourself?
Ooh, gosh. I think I'm very. That's a good question. I'm very reflective. That's one thing for sure. Sometimes to a fault where I will let something weigh down on me for a long period of time. Sometimes not necessarily decisions I made, but I might say something or do something that I don't really regret, but I'll kind of think about it. It'll kind of linger in my head for a while, when really it's nothing. And usually if I talk to somebody about it, or I see if somebody else that was in the room noticed it, normally that's not the case. But I think I think I reflect back on stuff a lot. And I'm a family man. I think that's where my real passion is. I got 3 kids. I've been married for about 10 years. And so I think that's where a lot of my thought process comes from, is coming from that place of home and family.
I mean, I think you did a good job describing yourself. I probably would have maybe not so intimately known how much those things keep you awake at night or however the reflection gets to you. But I like how you describe yourself. One of the things that I would have said too is very even keel. Even if something's getting to you, you don't let it show. And I think that's a nice mark of leadership too.
Oh, thank you.
Shane, thanks for joining me today on this Spotlight interview. Appreciate all the time, all the 13 years we're working together. Looking forward to another 13 plus more.
Thanks, Ross.